The morning started like any other day on Colony 7 Kimtae. Ho woke up to the sound of mining machines working deep underground. The 12-year-old boy stretched and looked out of his small window. The red sun was rising over the dusty hills, and the air recyclers were humming their usual tune. "Mom, I'm hungry," he called out to the kitchen where Lee So Jin was making breakfast. "Coming, sweetheart," she replied. Her voice was soft and warm, just like always. She brought him a plate of protein bars and synthetic juice. It wasn't much, but it was what they had on this remote mining world. Ho ate quietly while watching the news on their old screen. The reporter was talking about trade deals between Earth and some alien worlds. His mother always got sad when they showed news about Earth. She missed their home planet even though they had left when Taeho was very small. "Mom, why did we really leave Earth?" Taeho asked the question he had asked many times before. His mother sat down next to him and touched his face gently. "Your father died in a transport accident. Remember, we came here for a fresh start, a better life." But Taeho always felt like there was more to the story. His mother would get this look in her eyes whenever she talked about his father, like she was hiding something important, but he never pushed too hard. He could see it made her hurt. The morning was peaceful until the alarm started screaming. So Jin jumped up and ran to the window. Her face went white with fear. "Those air drill alarms." Taeho get to the shelter now, but before they could move, the ground shook violently outside their window. Huge black ships were landing. The ships were nothing like the human vessels Taeho had seen in pictures. These were angular and dark with red lights that pulsed like angry eyes. The Vorthic Empire had found Colony 7, so Jin grabbed Taeho by the hand and they ran toward the emergency shelters. But the streets were already full of panicking people. Alien soldiers were pouring out of the landed ships. They were tall and covered in thick armor that made them look like walking nightmares. The soldiers carried weapons that fired bright blue energy beams. When the beams hit people, they just collapsed. Some of the colonists tried to fight back with mining tools and old rifles, but human weapons barely scratched the alien armor. Ho and his mother ran through the chaos trying to reach the shelter, but a group of Vortex soldiers blocked their path. The aliens were scanning the crowd with handheld devices looking for something specific. One of the soldiers pointed his scanner at Taeho and the device started beeping frantically. The soldier made excited clicking sounds and called to his commander. Captain Vex came over to look at the readings. He was bigger than the other soldiers, with scars across his face and glowing red implants in his eyes. He studied Taeho with interest. "This one is different," he said in broken human language. "Pure genetic markers. High intelligence reading, very valuable." "No, please don't take my son," so Jin begged. She stepped in front of Taeho, trying to protect him. Captain Vex looked at her with something that might have been pity. Then he raised his weapon and fired, so Jin fell to the ground and didn't move again. Taeho wanted to scream, wanted to cry, wanted to fight, but something inside him went very quiet and very cold. He looked at his mother's body, then at the alien who had killed her. His young mind was already working, figuring out who these creatures were and what they wanted. The captain noticed that Taeho wasn't crying or begging like the other human children. "This one has control," he noted to his soldiers. "Very rare in young specimens." Two soldiers grabbed Taeho by his arms and started dragging him toward their ship, but Taeho didn't struggle. He was watching everything, learning the layout of their equipment, how many soldiers were in each squad, what weapons they carried, how they communicated as they walked through the burning colony. Taeho saw other children being taken. Some were screaming, some were fighting, but most were just crying for their parents. The adults who tried to help were shot down without mercy. The Vortex ship was massive inside, with long corridors and holding cells. Taeho was thrown into a cell with 20 other humans, mostly children and teenagers. The cell was dark and smelled of fear and despair. An older boy named Han-Woo-sik was sitting in the corner he had been on the ship longer than the others. "They take the smart ones," he whispered to Taeho. "Sell them to rich aliens who want exotic pets or servants. The rest go to the labor camps." Taeho nodded but said nothing. He was still watching and learning. The guards rotated every 6 hours. They carried their weapons on their left side. They had a blind spot near the cell door when they brought food. "What are you thinking about?" Han-Woo-sik asked him. "Thinking about my father," Taeho replied quietly. "Is he coming to save us?" Taeho looked at the older boy with eyes that seemed too old for his 12-year-old face. "I don't know, but someone will pay for what happened today, Captain." Vex visited the holding cells later that day. He walked slowly past each prisoner, studying them like goods in a market. When he reached Taeho, he stopped. "You are not like the others, little human. Why do you not cry? Why do you not beg?" Taeho looked up at the alien captain with steady eyes. "Because crying won't bring my mother back, and begging won't stop you from whatever you're planning to do with us." The captain made a sound that might have been laughter. "This one will bring a high price at the auctions. The wealthy love intelligent pets, especially ones with spirit." As captain Vex walked away, Taeho made a silent promise to his mother's memory. He would survive whatever came next. He would grow stronger. He would remember every face, every name, every crime, and someday, somehow, he would make them all pay. The ship lifted off from Colony 7, leaving behind only smoke and ruins, but in the dark holding cell a young human boy was already planning his revenge. He didn't know that his father was the most feared diplomat in the galaxy. He didn't know that his mother had died. Keeping that secret safe, all Taeho knew was that he was alone now, but he was not helpless. And the aliens who had destroyed his world were about to learn that they had made a very dangerous enemy. The Vorthok Empire thought they had captured just another human child, but they had taken the son of Park Jin-woo, and that mistake would cost them everything. 3 months had passed since Colony 7 burned, and Taeho had changed. The soft-faced boy who woke up to his mother's breakfast was gone. In his place stood someone harder and colder, but also smarter. The Vorthak ship had been his school, and pain had been his teacher. The ship finally docked at Kepler Station, the biggest trading hub in this part of the galaxy. Taeho had heard the guards talking about it during the long journey. It was a massive space station that floated between 3-star systems, a place where anything could be bought or sold, including people. Captain Vex walked through the holding cells one last time before the auction. He stopped at Taeho's cell and studied the boy through the energy bars. "You have not broken," he observed with something like respect. "Most young ones are crying or sick by now, yet you grow stronger." Taeho looked up at the alien captain with those same steady eyes. "I told you before, crying doesn't help." The captain made his clicking laugh sound. "Again, you will make me rich today, little human. The buyers love ones with spirit, but also with intelligence. You have both soon." After the guards came to take the prisoners to the auction house, Taeho was put in a group with 5 other humans, all around his age. They were led through corridors filled with cages holding creatures from across the galaxy. Some looked almost human, others were so alien that Taeho could not even guess what they were. The auction house was enormous, a huge circular room with thousands of seats rising up like an amphitheater. In the center was a raised platform with bright lights shining down. Rich aliens of every shape and size filled the seats. They wore expensive clothes and jewelry that sparkled under the lights. Taeho was kept in a waiting area with the other humans scheduled for sale. A Xanthari slave trader named Kess was organizing them into groups. She was tall and thin with blue skin and 4 arms. She moved between the cages, checking tags and making notes on a datapad. When she reached Taeho, she stopped and read his information twice. Pure human male, 12 standard years, high intelligence rating, no behavioral problems. Her 4 eyes widened slightly. "This one might break records," she muttered. The auction began with exotic animals and rare artifacts. Taeho watched the proceedings with the same careful attention he had given everything since his capture. He studied the buyers, noting which ones bid on what types of goods. A fat Herlick merchant seemed to prefer strong workers. A elegant Xanthari lady bought only beautiful decorative items. Then came the sentient beings section. The auctioneer was a Vorthak with a voice amplifier that made his words echo through the hall. "Now we present our finest intelligent specimens," he announced, "perfect for personal service, advanced labor, or entertainment." One by one, the prisoners were led onto the platform and sold. Taeho watched as Han-woo Seek, the older boy from his cell, was purchased by a mining consortium. The boy looked back at Taeho once before being led away. There was fear in his eyes, but also hope. Maybe wherever he was going would be better than the ship. Finally, it was Taeho's turn. 2 guards escorted him onto the platform. The bright lights were blinding after months in dim cells, but he kept his head up and his expression calm. He would not show weakness in front of these creatures. "Ladies and gentlemen," the auctioneer called out, "I present a rare specimen. Indeed, a pure-blood human child, age 12 standard years. Intelligence rating of 96 out of 100 completely Healthy and remarkably well behaved despite his circumstances, the crowd murmured with interest. Pure humans were uncommon in the slave markets. Most had been mixed with other species over the generations. A child of Tehozia age and intelligence was practically unheard of bidding. Starts at 500 credits, the auctioneer announced. A reptilian trader in the front row immediately raised his hand. 600. A wealthy-looking insectoid female clicked her mandibles. 750. The bids came faster as more aliens joined in. 1,000, 1,200, 1,500. The numbers climbed higher than anything Teho had heard during the previous sales. In the crowd, a massive alien that looked like a walking tree raised a appendage that might have been an arm. 2,000 credits. His voice was deep like grinding stones, but then from the luxury boxes high above came a new voice. 3,000. All heads turned to see who had made such a high bid. In one of the private viewing areas sat Lord Crix, a Xanthari noble known throughout the sector for his wealth and cruelty. He was pale blue with silver markings across his face that indicated high rank. His clothes were made from materials that cost more than most beings made in a lifetime. The auctioneer was clearly excited by the high bid. Do I hear 4,000? Lord Crix stood up slowly and looked down at Teho on the platform. The boy stared back without flinching, even though something cold moved through his stomach at the alien's gaze. 5,000. Lord Crix said calmly. The auction hall fell silent. 5,000 credits for a single slave was an enormous sum. Even wealthy traders hesitated at such a price. The auctioneer waited, but no other bids came. Going once, going twice. Sold to Lord Crix for 5,000 credits. As the gavel fell, Teho felt chains being attached to his wrists, but his mind was already working. He had learned the name of his buyer. He had seen the alien's face. He had noted which guards were taking him and which direction they were heading. The guards led him through a series of corridors toward the private docking bays where Lord Crix's ship waited. As they walked, Teho whispered something under his breath in the human language. The guards heard him but did not understand the words. What did the little human say? One guard asked the other. Second guard shrugged. Probably begging or crying in his own tongue. They all do it eventually, but Teho had not been begging or crying. He had been making a promise in the language his mother taught him. A promise that his father, whoever and wherever he was, would someday learn what had happened. A promise that this would not be the end of his story. My father will come for me, he had whispered. And when he does, all of you will pay. Lord Crix's ship was waiting at the dock. It was sleek and expensive like everything else the Xanthari noble owned. As Teho was led aboard, he memorized every detail, the layout, the crew positions, the security systems, everything that might be useful. Later, Lord Crix himself came to inspect his new purchase. You cost me a great deal, little human, he said in perfect human language. I trust you will be worth the investment. Teho looked up at his new owner with the same steady gaze that had unnerved Captain Vex. You will find out soon enough, the noble laughed, thinking it was childish defiance, but something in the boy's eyes made him slightly uncomfortable. This human child seemed different from the broken creatures he usually bought. There was something dangerous hiding behind those young features. As the ship left Kepler Station and jumped to hyperspace, Teho pressed his face to a small window. He watched the stars stretch into lines and made another silent promise to his mother's memory. He would survive whatever Lord Crix had planned. He would grow stronger and smarter. He would wait for his chance, and when that chance came, he would show these aliens what happened when they underestimated a human child. Ambassador Park Jin-woo sat in his office on the 47th floor of the human embassy on Nexus Prime. The capital world of the Galactic Council was always busy, but today felt different. Something was wrong. He could feel it in the way his staff moved around him. Their eyes held secrets and their voices were too careful. Jin-woo was known throughout the galaxy as the Iron Diplomat. He had negotiated humanity's entry into the Galactic Council when most aliens thought humans were too primitive to join. He had secured trade deals that made Earth rich and defense agreements that kept human colonies safe. His reputation was built on being 10 steps ahead of everyone else, but today he felt blind. As Chief Assistant Choi Min-ho knocked on the office door. Come in, Jin-woo called out. Min-ho entered with a datapad in his hands, but he seemed reluctant to approach the desk. He had worked for Jin-woo for 8 years and had never looked this nervous. Sir, I have received some information that you need to see, Min-ho said quietly. It concerns your personal situation. Jin-woo looked up sharply. Very few people knew about his personal life. He had worked hard to keep it that way. What kind of information? Min Ho activated his datapad and placed it on the desk. The screen showed a news report from 3 months ago. Colony 7 mining station attacked by Vorthak raiders. Hundreds dead or missing. Jin Woo's blood turned cold. So Jin and Tae Ho lived on Colony 7. He had put them there specifically because it was remote and safe away from his enemies and the dangerous political games he played every day. Sir, there is more, Min Ho said gently. According to the survivor reports, your wife Lee So-jin was confirmed among the casualties. The datapad slipped from Jin Woo's hands. His carefully controlled expression cracked for just a moment. 8 years of hiding his family. 8 years of protecting them from a distance, all for nothing, and my son Jin Woo asked, though he already feared the answer. Missing. Sir, along with several dozen other colonists, mostly children, the survivors report that the Vorthak took prisoners before they left. Jin Woo stood up so quickly that his chair fell over. His mind was already racing through possibilities. If Tae Ho had been taken by the Vorthak, it meant only one thing: they would sell him in the slave markets. How long ago did this happen? 3 months, sir. Min Ho replied, I am sorry I did not learn of it sooner. The information was classified. In 3 months, Jin Woo repeated. His son had been in alien hands for 3 months while he sat in his comfortable office making trade deals. Sir, what are your orders? Jin Woo walked to the window that looked out over the gleaming towers of Nexus Prime. Somewhere out there in the vast galaxy, his 12-year-old son was probably suffering in ways that made Jin Woo sick to think about. Get me Young Ki Min, Jin Woo said finally. I need our best intelligence operative here immediately. Ki Min arrived within an hour. He was a small, quiet man who looked like an accountant, but he ran the most effective spy network in the galaxy. His agents were everywhere, from the Imperial Court to the criminal underworld. You heard? Min Ho asked. Ki Min nodded. I have already begun preliminary investigations. The Vorthak ship that attacked Colony 7 was the Ravager under Captain Vex. They are known slave raiders who work the Outer Rim territories. Where do they sell their captives? Usually through the auction houses on Kepler Station. Ki Min replied, but Ambassador, that was 3 months ago. The boy could be anywhere by now. Jin Woo turned away from the window. His face had become a mask of cold determination. I want every favor called in, every contact activated, every debt collected. Find my son. Ki Min hesitated. Sir, finding one human child in a galaxy of trillions will be almost impossible. And if we make too much noise about your personal connection, it could compromise your position here. Jin Woo looked at his intelligence chief with eyes that could freeze plasma. My position here means nothing. If my family is gone, do whatever it takes, spend whatever it costs. Break any law that needs breaking. Find my son. Yes, sir. Ki Min replied. He had worked with Jin Woo long enough to recognize when the ambassador was beyond negotiation. I will begin immediately. As Ki Min left the office, Jin Woo sat back down at his desk. His hands were shaking slightly, something that had not happened in 15 years of high-pressure negotiations. He opened a secure drawer and pulled out a small photo. It showed a younger version of himself with So-jin and baby Tae Ho. They were at a park on Earth before everything changed. So Jin had understood when he explained why they had to leave Earth. His work had made him enemies, powerful aliens who would not hesitate to hurt his family to get to him. She had agreed to the exile to keep their son safe, and now she was dead because of him. The secure comm system on his desk chimed with an incoming message. It was from Young Ki Min, already working his network. Sir, I have confirmed that Captain Vex did dock at Kepler Station 91 days ago. Ship's manifest shows 27 human prisoners sold through the central auction house. Jin Woo activated his own terminal and began accessing files that most people in the galaxy did not even know existed. As the Iron Diplomat, he had accumulated favors and secrets from beings across 100 worlds. Now it was time to use them all. He sent encrypted messages to smugglers who owed him their freedom, to crime bosses who had avoided prosecution because of his intervention, to alien nobles who had benefited from his trade negotiations. The message was simple: help me find my son and your debts are forgiven. Refuse and those debts will be collected with interest within hours. Responses began coming back. Everyone wanted to help the Iron Diplomat, some because they feared him, others because they respected him, but all of them understood that Jin Woo was calling in every favor he had ever earned. As Jin Woo worked through the night gathering intelligence and mobilizing resources, he felt something changing inside him. For 8 years he had been the perfect diplomat, always calm, always reasonable, always looking for the peaceful solution, but diplomacy had not saved his wife. Negotiations had not protected his son. Politics had not prevented his family from being torn apart. The aliens who had taken Tae-ho thought they were dealing with just another human child. They had no idea they had kidnapped the son of the most dangerous man in the galaxy, and Jin-woo was about to show them the difference between a diplomat and a father. The Iron Diplomat was dead. Long live the father who would burn down the galaxy to get his son back. As dawn broke over Nexus Prime, Jin-woo stood at his window, making a silent promise to his dead wife and missing son. He would find Tae-ho no matter how long it took or what it cost. And when he did, every alien who had played a part in his family's destruction would learn why humans had earned their place among the stars. The hunt was about to begin. 2 weeks after discovering his son's fate, Jin-woo stood on the landing platform of Voldres, a pleasure world where the rich and powerful came to indulge their darkest desires. The planet was beautiful on the surface, with crystal blue oceans and floating cities, but Jin-woo knew what happened in the shadows. Here Young Ki-min's intelligence network had tracked Tae-ho to Lord Crix's estate on this world. The Zenthari noble had purchased the boy for his private collection of exotic servants, but when Jin-woo arrived at the estate, he found it in chaos. The main building was partially destroyed. Security forces were everywhere, examining blast damage and interviewing witnesses. Lord Crix himself was in a medical facility recovering from severe injuries. Jin-woo approached the estate manager, a nervous Zenthari female named Yes, who recognized him. Immediately, Ambassador Park, she said with obvious relief. Thank the void you are here. We were about to contact the human embassy. What happened? Here Jin-woo asked, though his heart was already sinking. Your son, sir, he escaped 3 days ago, but not before killing 2 of our guards and injuring Lord Crix himself. Jin-woo felt a mixture of pride and horror. Tae-ho was alive and fighting back. But what had he become in the months since his capture? A 12-year-old boy should not be killing trained guards. Tell me everything, Jin-woo demanded. Yes activated a holographic display showing security footage. The boy seemed cooperative at first. She explained he worked in the household, did his tasks without complaint. Lord Crix was pleased with his purchase. The hologram showed Tae-ho moving through the estate. He looked thinner than Jin-woo remembered, and there was something different in his posture, something alert and dangerous, but he was watching everything. Yes continued, learning our routines, studying our security systems. On the 3rd night, he struck. The security footage showed Tae-ho moving through darkened corridors. He had somehow obtained a guard's weapon and was using it with deadly efficiency. The boy Jin-woo watched on the screen moved like a predator, not a child. He killed guards Nam Hyeon and Torres with their own weapons. Yes said. Then he confronted Lord Crix in his private chambers. We do not know what was said, but when security arrived, they found his lordship badly beaten and the boy gone. Where did he go? Jin-woo asked unknown. Sir, he took a small transport ship and disappeared into the outer rim. We have been unable to track him. Jin-woo studied the holographic display. His son had not just escaped, he had planned a military operation and executed it flawlessly. Where had a 12-year-old learned such skills? I need to speak with Lord Crix. Zenthari noble was in a private medical suite, his blue skin pale and covered with healing patches. When he saw Jin-woo enter, his eyes widened with recognition and something that might have been fear. Ambassador Park, I did not know the boy was your son. If I had known. What did my son say to you? Jin-woo interrupted. Lord Crix shifted uncomfortably in his medical bed. He told me that his father would come for him and that when you did, I would pay for what I had done. He paused, then added, he also said that the galaxy would learn what happens when humans are pushed too far. Jin-woo felt a chill run down his spine. Those were not the words of a frightened child. They were the words of someone planning war. The noble continued, your son is not what he appears to be. Ambassador, in the months I owned him, he was learning, watching, preparing. He knew exactly how to disable our security systems, how to access our weapon stores, even how to pilot our ships. How is that possible? Jin-woo asked. I do not know, the noble replied, but he moves like a trained soldier and thinks like a general. I have owned thousands of slaves over the years. None of them were like him. Jin-woo left Valdres with more questions than answers. His son was alive and free, but had become something Jin-woo did not recognize. The gentle boy who used to ask about Earth was now a killer moving through the criminal underworld of the Outer Rim. Young Ki-min met him at the spaceport with new intelligence reports. Sir, we have been tracking your son's movements through the black market networks. He is not just surviving out there, he is building something. What do you mean, over? The past 2 weeks there have been 17 attacks on slave operations across the Outer Rim. Each one shows the same pattern. Precision strikes that free the prisoners and leave the slavers dead. The survivors all report seeing a young human leading mixed groups of escaped slaves. Jin Woo reviewed the reports with growing amazement. His son had not just escaped, he had started a rebellion. Every attack was perfectly planned and executed with minimal casualties among the prisoners, but devastating losses for the slavers. But Sir Ki-min continued, there is more. Each freed slave operation leaves behind the same message burned into the walls. What message? Death to all who trade in sentient beings by order of the Human Liberation Front. Jin Woo stared at the intelligence report. His 12-year-old son had founded a resistance movement in the criminal underworld and was systematically dismantling the slave trade, one operation at a time. The scope of what Taeho was accomplishing was staggering. He had united dozens of different alien species under a single banner. He had acquired ships, weapons, and resources. He had created an intelligence network that rivaled some government agencies. He was doing it all while being hunted by crime lords across the sector. Sir, Ki-min said quietly, there is something else. The criminal organizations have placed a bounty on your son, 10 million credits for his capture. They are calling him the Ghost Commander. Jin Woo closed his eyes. The boy he had tried to protect by keeping him hidden was now the most wanted criminal in the Outer Rim, but he was also becoming a legend. Every freed slave carried stories of the young human who appeared from nowhere to save them. We need to find him before the bounty hunters do. Jin Woo said, that may be difficult, sir. The same skills that make him effective against the slavers make him nearly impossible to track. He appears, strikes, and vanishes like smoke. Jin Woo activated his personal comm system and began sending messages to contacts throughout the galaxy. If his son wanted to fight the slave trade, then Jin Woo would help him, but first he had to find him. The hunt continued, but now Jin Woo realized he was not just searching for his missing child. He was tracking down someone who had become a force of nature in the galactic underworld, someone who was changing the balance of power across dozens of worlds, and that someone was his 12-year-old son. As Jin Woo's ship jumped to hyperspace, heading for the next reported sighting, he wondered what he would find when he finally caught up with Taeho. Would he still recognize the boy he had lost? Or had the galaxy created something entirely new? Either way, Jin Woo was proud. His son had not broken under the worst circumstances imaginable. Instead, he had become exactly what the slavers deserved. A nightmare that struck from the shadows and showed no mercy. The Iron Diplomat was hunting the Ghost Commander, and when they finally met, the galaxy would never be the same. The pirate base of Skull Rock was exactly the kind of place respectable beings avoided. It floated in an asteroid field far from any major trade routes, a haven for smugglers, criminals, and worse things that preferred to stay hidden from Galactic law. But Young Ki-min's sources had tracked Taeho here. Jin Woo stood on the bridge of his diplomatic vessel, studying the massive asteroid base through the view screen. It was heavily armed with weapon platforms that could destroy a battleship if they chose to. The fact that they were allowing his ship to approach meant someone inside wanted to talk. Ambassador, we are receiving a transmission from the base. Ki-min reported. Put it through. The main screen flickered and showed a face Jin Woo recognized from intelligence files. Kang Dae-young, a former human military officer who had gone rogue after the colony wars. He now ran one of the most successful pirate fleets in this sector. Ambassador Park, the pirate captain said with a slight smile, I hear you are looking for someone. You know where my son is? Jin Woo replied, it was not a question. I know where the Ghost Commander is. Kang replied, whether he is your son remains to be seen. The kid who is leading the resistance down here is not the same boy who was taken from Colony 7. What do you mean? Come aboard and see for yourself. But Ambassador, a word of warning. The young man you are about to meet has been through hell. He has done things that would break most adults. He may not be the child. You remember Jin Woo's shuttle docked with the asteroid base, and he was escorted through corridors filled with aliens from dozens of species. Most were former slaves or refugees from various conflicts. They all wore the same emblem, a broken chain. With a human fist breaking through it, the escort led Jin Woo to a command center deep inside the asteroid. Here, dozens of beings worked at control stations monitoring communications and tracking slave operations across the sector. It looked more like a military headquarters than a pirate base. At the center of it all stood a figure Jin Woo almost did not recognize. Tae-ho had grown taller in the months since his capture, but that was not what shocked his father. The boy moved with the controlled precision of a trained soldier. His eyes constantly scanned the room looking for threats. His hand rested casually near a weapon on his belt. When Tae-ho saw Jin Woo enter the command center, he froze for a moment, then his carefully controlled expression cracked, and for just an instant he looked like the 12-year-old boy Jin Woo remembered. "Dad," he said quietly. The word hung in the air between them. Then Tae-ho was moving across the room, and Jin Woo was holding his son for the first time in over a year. They both had tears in their eyes, but neither of them spoke. Around them, the command center had gone silent. Every being in the room understood they were witnessing something important: the reunion of a father and son who had both been changed by the galaxy's cruelty. When they finally separated, Jin Woo held Tae-ho at arm's length and studied his face. There were scars there that had not been there before, and something in his son's eyes that spoke of experiences no child should have. "I thought you were dead," Tae-ho said finally. "Mom told me you died in a transport accident. I let her tell you that." Jin Woo replied, "It was safer for both of you. My work made enemies, people who would have hurt you, to get to me." Tae-ho nodded slowly. "I understand. Now the things I have learned, the people I have met, your work must be very dangerous." Jin Woo looked around the command center, taking in the sophisticated operation his son had built. "How did you do all this?" "I had good teachers," Tae-ho replied. "Some of the people the slavers captured were former military intelligence agents, criminal masterminds, even a few diplomats." He smiled slightly. "I learned from all of them, and you used that knowledge to build this. It's not just me, Dad." Tae-ho gestured to the beings working around them. "Every person here has lost someone to the slave trade. We are all fighting for the same thing: a galaxy where people like us cannot be bought and sold." Jin Woo felt a surge of pride mixed with concern. His son had become a leader, but at what cost? "What have you had to do to survive out here?" "Things I wish I hadn't," Tae-ho replied honestly, "but necessary things. Dad, the galaxy is not the civilized place they show you in the diplomatic corps. There are places where sentient beings are treated worse than animals, and no one with power seems to care." Jin Woo knew his son was right. He had spent years negotiating trade deals and defense treaties, while turning a blind eye to the darker aspects of galactic society, because it was not his problem, because it did not affect human interests until it affected his family. "What is your plan now?" Jin Woo asked. Tae-ho activated a holographic display that showed the entire sector. "We have identified 47 major slave operations across 12 systems. Our intelligence network has infiltrated most of them. We are planning coordinated strikes that will cripple the trade in this region." The scope of the operation was breathtaking. Jin Woo realized his son was not just playing at being a resistance leader, he was running a full-scale military campaign. "But Dad," Tae-ho continued, "we need more than just military victories. We need someone with political power, someone who can change the laws that allow this to happen." He was looking directly at Jin Woo as he spoke. "You want me to use my position in the Galactic Council?" Jin Woo said. "I want you to help me save millions of people." Tae-ho replied, "The same way you saved Earth when you negotiated our entry into the Council." Jin Woo considered his son's words everything. He had worked for his reputation. His carefully built network of allies could be destroyed if he openly supported what amounted to a terrorist organization. But then he thought about Sojin dying on Colony 7. He thought about his son being sold like property. He thought about all the other families being torn apart by creatures who saw sentient beings as commodities. "What do you need from me?" Jin Woo asked. Tae-ho smiled, and for a moment he looked like the boy Jin Woo remembered. "We need diplomatic immunity for our operations. We need access to council intelligence on slave routes. And we need someone to present evidence to the full council when the time comes." Jin Woo nodded slowly. "I can arrange all of that. But son, this will mean the end of my career as a diplomat. Once I openly support your resistance, there will be no going back." Tae-ho looked around the command center at all the beings working to end the slave trade. "Dad, was your career worth more than Mom's life? Is your reputation worth more than the millions of people suffering in chains across the galaxy? Jin Woo had his answer. Without another word, he activated his diplomatic comm system and began sending messages to his network of contacts. The Iron Diplomat was about to become something much more dangerous, a father working with his son to change the galaxy forever. As alerts began flashing across the command center screens showing increased activity from slave operations that had detected their communications, Jin Woo and Tae-ho stood side by side planning their next move. The boy who had been sold at auction and the man who had negotiated humanity's place among the stars were about to show the galaxy what happened when you threaten the human family. And the slavers who had started this war were about to learn they had made the biggest mistake in galactic history. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council had never seen anything like it. Ambassador Park. Jin Woo stood at the central podium while on screens throughout the chamber live feeds showed explosions at slave markets across 12 star systems. It was the most coordinated attack in galactic history, and it was happening during an emergency session of the council. Jin Woo had called the session using his diplomatic authority, claiming he had evidence of crimes against humanity that threatened galactic stability. None of the other ambassadors knew what was coming. They thought they were attending another routine diplomatic presentation. How wrong they were. Honored delegates, Jin Woo began, his voice carrying clearly through the massive chamber. Today you will witness the end of an era. For too long, this council has ignored the systematic enslavement of sentient beings across our galaxy. Today that ends. On the screens behind him, footage played of Tae-ho resistance fighters storming slave compounds. The young man himself could be seen leading assault teams with tactical precision that impressed even military observers. Each operation was perfectly timed to coincide with Jin Woo's presentation. The Zenthari delegate rose from his seat. This is highly irregular, Ambassador Park. These appear to be terrorist attacks against legitimate businesses. Jin Woo turned to face the blue-skinned alien with eyes that could melt steel. Legitimate businesses, Delegate Vex. Tell me how selling children at auction qualifies as legitimate. The chamber erupted in confused voices as delegates tried to understand what was happening. Many of them had investments in the operations currently being destroyed on the screens. Others had family members who owned slaves. The economic implications were staggering. Order called Council President Hadish Ancient Eternal, whose species had founded the council millennia ago. Ambassador Park explained the meaning of this. Jin Woo activated another set of screens showing documentation his son had gathered over months of operations. Shipping manifests, auction records, financial transactions. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. What you see before you, Jin Woo announced, is proof that over 40% of council member species are directly involved in the slave trade, the very beings who sit in this chamber making laws about sentient rights are buying and selling people like livestock. The Herlick trade minister stood up indignantly. These are lies. Humans have no proof of these accusations. Jin Woo smiled coldly. You want proof, Minister? I have the transaction records showing your government purchased 12,000 human prisoners from Vorthok raiders over the past 5 years, including one 12-year-old boy sold for 5,000 credits. He activated a specific screen showing Tae-ho on the auction block at Kepler Station. The image of the young human standing in chains while aliens bid on him sent shockwaves through the chamber. Many delegates had never seen the reality of what they were supporting. That boy, Minister, is my son. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Iron Diplomat, whose negotiations had shaped galactic policy for nearly a decade, had been personally affected by the slave trade. His own child had been merchandise in their system, and if they had done this to the son of one of the most powerful humans in the galaxy, what did that say about their treatment of beings with no political connections? President Hadish leaned forward in his ancient chair. Ambassador, your son appears to be leading military operations against council member interests. This is an act of war. Jin Woo nodded slowly. Yes, President, it is my son declared war on the slave trade the day his mother was murdered and he was put in chains, and I am here to inform this council that humanity supports that war completely. The screen showed more footage from the ongoing operations, slave compounds burning transport ships being captured, thousands of prisoners being freed by mixed teams of humans and aliens who had all suffered under the system. But this is not just a human war, Jin Wu continued. Every species in this galaxy has members who have been enslaved. The beings fighting alongside my son represent over 30 different worlds. They are united by one simple belief that sentient life cannot be bought and sold. The Vorthek military commander, who had been silent until now, stood up, his armor gleaming. Under the chamber lights, this human child has cost our sector billions of credits in legitimate trade. He is a terrorist and should be hunted down like an animal. Jin Wu turned to face the alien warrior. Legitimate trade, Commander, tell me, was it legitimate when your Captain Vex murdered my wife in front of my son? Was it legitimate when that same boy was sold to be someone's pet? The commander started to respond, but Jin Wu cut him off. You want to hunt down my son, Commander? You are welcome to try, but understand this: every military officer, every government official, every business owner who has profited from slavery is now a target. The age of treating sentient beings as property is over. As if summoned by his words, the main screen activated, showing a familiar young face. Taeho appeared on the communication feed, speaking directly to the Galactic Council. His voice was calm but carried the authority of someone who had learned to command through necessity. Honored delegates, he said, I am Kim Taeho, son of Ambassador Park Jin Wu. I was sold at auction in this very star system 5 months ago today. I stand as the leader of the largest resistance movement in galactic history. The chamber was riveted. Every delegate was staring at the screen, watching a 13-year-old human address them with the confidence of a seasoned military commander. We did not choose this war, Taeho continued. You chose it when you decided our lives were commodities. You chose it when you built an economy on suffering. You chose it when you ignored the screams of millions because it was profitable. The screens showed real-time updates from the operations. 43 slave markets destroyed, 12 transport fleets captured, over 50,000 prisoners liberated. The numbers kept climbing as the coordinated assault continued. But we are not here to destroy your civilization, Taeho said. We are here to save it. A galaxy built on slavery cannot stand forever. Today you have a choice: end the slave trade voluntarily, or we will end it for you. President Haddish found his voice again. Young human, what you are demanding would collapse the economy of dozens of worlds. Taeho smiled, and for a moment he looked like the child he still was. Then those worlds need to find a new economy, one that doesn't depend on treating people like animals. Jin Wu stepped forward to address the council again. My son has given you a choice, delegates, but understand that this is not a negotiation. This is a declaration. Humanity withdraws from all trade agreements with any species that continues to practice slavery. We will use our economic influence to isolate slave trading worlds, and we will support resistance movements anywhere they arise. The economic implications were staggering. Human trade agreements were worth trillions of credits annually. Losing that economic partnership would devastate many worlds. But Jin Wu was not finished. He activated one final screen showing footage from human military bases across the galaxy, fleet mobilizations, weapon stockpiles being activated, defense platforms going online, and if economic pressure is not sufficient, Jin Wu said quietly, then humanity is prepared to use other methods. We spent centuries fighting slavery on our own world. We will not tolerate it spreading to the galaxy. The threat was clear. Humanity was willing to go to war over this issue, and every delegate in the chamber knew that humans had already proven themselves formidable opponents.